How's it going? The GoDows is back. It's draft week. There's a whole lot of rumors going around right now. And I got an updated mock draft. And we'll see which ones of the rumors that will follow, which ones we think are smoke. Last couple of years, the draft week rumors, not all of them, but quite a bit of them were pretty accurate, surprisingly. So we'll see what happens this year. This is probably our second to last mock draft video on the channel. Probably one more final one. And I always do very last second stuff on our Twitter, so make sure you follow that. But content leading up to the draft, during the draft, after the draft will also be live during day one of the draft here on YouTube. So make sure you like, subscribe to notifications on. Live analysis on every single pick on day 2 and 3 on Twitter. So make sure, again, follow. Very important to follow that. Links pinned in the comments. Sponsor links in the comments. Liquid IV, GLD shop. They have the Buccaneers chain on from the GLD shop. They have a lot more where that came from. First pick, Bryce Young. Don't have to spend too much time on this. It's expected to be Bryce Young. I think everyone's expecting it. We can go on to pick 2. Kind of keeping what I've been saying on this one. Tyree Wilson to the Texans. The betting odds for Will Levis at 2 are... He has the best betting odds at number 2, I should say, Levis. So do the Texans take him at 2? Do they think the Colts are going to trade up from 4 to 2? I'm still thinking it's a defensive player. D'Amico Ryan's probably making a push for a defensive player. And I'm leaning Wilson. Anderson, maybe the better overall edge rusher. Wilson, more versatile, better against the run. He'll fit the Texans defense pretty well. I'm not a huge Wilson guy, but in D'Amico Ryan's defense, it makes a lot of sense. It's a really good fit. That's where I'm at right now. Could be Levis. Could be Anderson. Could be a trade back. I think they might have a hard time finding someone to trade back. Maybe, maybe not. Number 3. Little bit of a surprise. Maybe the Cardinals. I got taken Paris Johnson Jr. And I might have floated this idea around in the past if they traded back. This definitely could be a trade back team, but I'm starting to think maybe there's no takers. We keep hearing that. And, there's more teams that want to trade back than want to trade up. Will they have a taker here to trade up and take this pick? Most likely not, but we'll see. I actually thought about the Colts moving up 1 spot to 3. I actually thought about that. So that's a possibility, a 3-4 swap. But, yeah, a lot of buzz about the Cardinals liking Paris Johnson Jr. as well as Devin Witherspoon from Illinois, and as well as Tyree Wilson if he's available. People are starting to think he's not going to be available, like I've been mocking him number 2. But it sounds like they really like Paris Johnson Jr. I actually heard Kyler Murray likes him. They had Paris Johnson Jr. over in Arizona recently for top 30. So this could actually be the pick. And honestly, it's a little bit of a surprise. In some way, it does feel a little early, but in some way it does kind of make sense, or I can see it happening because they have an early pick. They've had struggles on the offensive line. They need one more tackle to pair on there with DJ Humphries. Here's their opportunity to try to kind of complete the tackle duo, keep Kyler Murray protected, because that's the future right there. So you can make it make sense, I suppose. But I might, people might still disagree with the Paris Johnson going this early, or the Cardinals taking him. Maybe people are starting to think it could happen as well. Could it be smoke? Could be. I don't really see why they would smoke that, though. The Cardinals, that is. If I would have mocked this, even the most recent mock, I would have got destroyed for mocking Paris Johnson Jr. here. But now we see it's not a guarantee, but it's a possibility. So this is the first surprise of the NFL draft, which is always full of surprises. People forget, always full of surprises. This year seems like there's going to be more than ever. That's just what it feels like right now. Pick 4, I still got Will Levis to the Colts. It just feels like they like him over the other guys. Maybe they kind of, a lot of people thought Stroud earlier in the process. Stroud was going 1, and he definitely wasn't going to be there at 4. So maybe the Colts kind of just did extensive work on Will Levis. That seems to happen with teams. It's kind of a mistake they make is, kind of just focus on guys who will be there at your spot. I think the league's definitely going to be mixed on him. There's some teams that are going to like him around this range. I'm going to guess at the Colts. We hear the Texans are really high on him, but maybe the Colts and the Texans are really high on them and higher than everyone else on them. There's probably some teams that have me around 10 range, and then some teams have him at the back end of the first round. So it is a risky pick. I don't really love it at 4. I sure hope, for the Colts' sake, they do not trade up even 1 spot. It's ridiculous. And do it. So I hope they don't do that, but it feels like they like Levis. I saw a report I was talking about on Twitter earlier today that, this actually could be smoke, what I'm about to say, but the report was that the Mannings loved Levis, and WR-ZAY takes their opinion very seriously. And then Ballard was very intrigued by Anthony Richardson and his upside. And then assistant GM Ed Dodd liked CJ Stroud quite a bit, and feels that he could be the best for Steichen's offense, which you could argue Richardson because of his legs, but not pro ready. So basically the report was saying they're all split. I don't think anybody's split on anything. What is it, Monday, and the draft's on Thursday? I don't know. So that might be just trying to get in other teams' heads a little bit. So that actually might be smoke. But I'm kind of following what we heard recently, and that is that they like Will Levis. They should take CJ Stroud. But most of the pre-draft process, it was kind of Richardson, especially since the combine. So if they took Richardson, I think we'd all be going like, it was Richardson all along maybe. So, but they might not want to wait for Richardson to develop because he might be have to sit a year. And if you go to the Colts, he's not sitting a year probably. But let's be on Minshew. But we'll see. Right now, I think it's Levis. Things start. The Paris Johnson thing kind of, well, Tyree Wilson going 2 over Anderson changes some things, and Paris Johnson going 3 changes some things. But pick 5. I talked about this last time, maybe the time before that, The Seahawks, I'm not confident about a whole lot in terms of, there's things I'm confident about, but basically with the Seahawks, I'm confident with Carter or Will Anderson. If Tyree Wilson is there, that would mean Will Anderson's probably gone, so then it would be Carter or Tyree Wilson, but I'm pretty confident with Carter and Wilson. So, it's kind of rare, I guess I should say, or I'm confident in Carter or Anderson, I should say. But it's a little interesting that other teams, it's more of I'm confident with like 5 or 6 different guys. With the Seahawks, it kind of feels like 2 guys right now. So, if Anderson's there, if the Texans pass on him, can the Seahawks pass him, or do they go for the risk with the off the field questions with Jalen Carter? I'm back and forth on that. I'm very much back and forth. Just keep hearing them. I was mocking them Carter for a while, then I kept hearing that they were connected to Carter. Most teams in the league think they're going to take Carter. So we're going to go with that. And I've heard people have been a little mixed on Will Anderson. They, some people, think he's an elite prospect that maybe most of myself and you out there think. And then some people, don't think he should go like super. He's not an elite player. He's not a super early pick, so we'll see. So I kind of follow the buzz there that's been not just today or recent, but over the last couple weeks, and then go with Carter to the Seahawks. Then number 6, tough decision for the Lions because Will Anderson is still there. I keep hearing them, and I mocked this last time as well, and I keep hearing they like Devin Witherspoon, the Illinois corner, physical corner, a little undersized, but plays bigger than he is. I keep hearing they love him. And maybe that could be smoke. Maybe they like Christian Gonzalez. They're both great, but I slightly prefer Christian Gonzalez for me. I can see the Lions liking either one of them. Witherspoon, maybe they got more of that physicality they look for. Gonzalez, maybe a little better in press. But you think Witherspoon could be able to be as good as him in that category. You can argue either one. I just keep hearing them connected to Witherspoon today, before today, around the last mock draft we did. But Will Anderson's still there. He's not supposed to be there. According to most people, he's not supposed to be there. Do they take him? I definitely could see it. Maybe just too good to pass. It's really tough because I think Brad Holmes, I've been a fan of Brad Holmes. He's usually, you got to take the best player available, and this guy is just too valuable to pass on. That's usually, for the most part, the case. They have their certain guys they target, but I just keep hearing they really like Witherspoon, and some teams really kind of just almost decide on players beforehand. Like they know Anderson's not supposed to be there, and they fell in love with Witherspoon. Maybe they take him. That was 50-50 for me because Anderson's not supposed to be, like I said. But I keep hearing at the same time, like as I was kind of deciding between the two, and still leaning Witherspoon because I just keep hearing they love him so much. But I just keep hearing a lot of teams. I've seen quotes from coaches, GMs, and there's a lot of buzz. Like he's supposed to go earlier than people think, and people have been mocking him early as well. People just love him, Witherspoon, that is. And then Anderson's a little mixed. People think he's elite. Some people like really good, but not elite. So could teams just have Witherspoon higher than Anderson on their board? It's actually a possibility based on what we're hearing recently, but Anderson very well could go 2, like we said. That's a possibility too. So 6, Witherspoon, and then 7, the Raiders. I'm going to go with Peter Skoronsky. This is a tough one. The Raiders are a tough one here because I heard they're one of the teams that really like Devin Witherspoon. And if he's there, that if he was still on the board, that would probably be who I mock to the Raiders. But he was off the board 1 pick before. Will Anderson's still there. Too good to pass on, in my opinion. Or do they stick it out with obviously Max Crosby, but with Chandler Jones as well? And then Christian Gonzalez, very much worthy of the pick. I could see Anthony Richardson. I'm starting to think they won't go CJ Stroud, even though they should consider it because he's that good. But they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3-year deal. It's not like they're going to be completely locked in for 3 years. It's going to be 2, maybe the 3, but it's going to be 2 probably. And I think he'll play pretty well for the Raiders this year. Do they just draft Stroud, who's kind of a pro-ready start-right-away guy, when they just sign Garoppolo? It'd look a little messy. So I think if they're going to go for a quarterback, they go with the guy like Richardson with the upside who can sit behind Garoppolo and learn. So I could see that as well. But Peter Skoronsky's name has been floating around there for the Raiders. They could like Witherspoon and Skoronsky were the names I heard today that they like. And you could argue they can use a guard or a right tackle. Illuminor played pretty well at right tackle, so maybe more so the guard, even though you could get better at right tackle still, but more so the better guard. And McDaniels, wanting to obviously get his offense to where he think it should be. It was underwhelming last year. Obviously, they need defense so bad, though. They need defense so bad, but the people are going to be split on Skoronsky, but the people that are very high on him are very, very, very high on him. So be a plug-and-play guard that has the ability to play tackle if you need him to. That could be the pick at 7. We were talking about this on Twitter, and the Raiders fans did not seem to be happy if this was the pick. So, unfortunately, that's what I got right now. But if Witherspoon's there, if Witherspoon was available, like if I had the Lions taking Will Anderson, which I almost did, and then Witherspoon was available, that's what I would have had here for the Raiders. Again, they could go Anthony Richardson. I can't completely rule out CJ Stroud. I'm not expecting it, though. But yeah, Anderson's still available. So now this is, we're getting a little too crazy here if we get him past this point. So I got Will Anderson going to the Falcons. And again, this could blow up in my face, I suppose, very easily. And that's why the draft's so hard to predict, is because he can go 2. I'm like 60-40 with Wilson and Anderson at 2. I went Wilson. If Anderson goes there, that changes everything, because where's Wilson going to go? Could he be available here for the Falcons? Does he go 3 to the Cardinals? I heard they like him. Does he go 5 to the Seahawks? They could like him over Carter. So it changes everything here. But based on, teams kind of make, I think the Cardinals, they wanted to trade back, during this whole process, and they were probably maybe targeting Paris Johnson and trade back. Now they realize that maybe they can't trade back, but they still want that tackle. And the same thing with some of the other teams. They're just already talked themselves into certain players. So Anderson gets pushed back here, and again, some teams are a little split on him. I don't think there's a crazy split. I don't think anybody's got him outside the top 10 as a player, but it's seeming more and more like it's a possibility that, somebody's going to slip through. It's going to be somebody good. But Will Anderson could, and we have Christian Gonzalez. So tough decision here for the Falcons. Will Anderson or Christian Gonzalez. I think maybe Anderson be a little bit tougher to pass on. And they could just roll with A.J. Terrell and Jeff Okudah. So maybe they feel like they can live without, and then getting another corner, obviously, in a different round. So maybe they feel like they can live, and they just can't pass on Will Anderson, because they've been missing a big-time pass rusher for some time now. So maybe this is like the floor for Will Anderson, because he could, it's 2 to 8 range. It feels like a 2 to 8 range type thing here, but I do think this is realistic based on the other picks and the scenarios here. We have a trade here. So I have the Texans coming up, trading with the Bears. We've heard about the Bears possibly trading back. So it's a small swap from 9 to 12, and the Bears get 73, which was a lot of value, like too much value at that point. So then it'd be a swap of 148 and 203. So the Bears add that extra pick there at 73, and they move back with Paris Johnson Jr., the Bears are expected to take Paris Johnson Jr. if he is available. We don't have him available. Another guy that I heard the league's higher on than the media has been, and then we had him going 3 to the Cardinals. So the Texans, who everyone kind of thinks they should take, who they should take at 2 is CJ Stroud. They go defense, and Stroud ends up slipping through. Teams, I've seen a quote from an NFL QB coach. They had Stroud at 1, quarterback 1, Then they saw the S2 test, and they actually moved him down. It might sound ridiculous to some of you. It sounds a little bit ridiculous to me, but that's just the case. Not for every single team, but there's only been 8 teams that picked so far. We're at pick 9. How many are actually thinking about taking a quarterback? Which I did consider Stroud the pick before as well. I forgot to mention that at Falcons. Like, could the Falcons pass on C.J. Stroud? I think perfect for Arthur Smith's scheme. You just get better at quarterback on top of a pretty good roster. So I actually strongly consider that as well. But the Texans seeing him start to slide, a guy that maybe they were considering at 2, but just wanted to go defense, which might be the most important thing in that new for that new staff. So they move up. They make sure they get ahead of the Tennessee Titans, and they hopped over the Eagles as well. But the Eagles, looking at how the board's shaking out, they may not want to trade back. And the Bears could stay put and take Christian Gonzalez with him still available. That's just too good to pass on. They actually could be looking for a corner. They also could stay put and take a guy like Broderick Jones. I'd say in this scenario, trade, stay put and take Gonzalez or Broderick Jones. That'd be what my prediction would be. I have him trading back in the scenario of the Texans coming up and getting C.J. Stroud. So that would look pretty good for the Texans there. And then pick 10. Yeah, the Eagles could look to trade back, but Christian Gonzalez in this scenario, and based on what I've been hearing with that, is he could slide a little bit too. Like, all the buzz is on Witherspoon right now. Could it be smoke? Everybody's like, yeah, we like Witherspoon. That's kind of what it's like right now. We love Witherspoon. No, we love Witherspoon. Us too. Could it be just some of that's real and some teams are piling on top of that because they really like Gonzalez? I definitely could see that. Definitely could see this. I'm a huge Gonzalez guy. I got an elite grade on him. Maybe just too good to pass on for other teams like the Falcons, or maybe the Lions prefer him over Witherspoon. But he ended up slipping through a little bit here. And the Eagles, too good to pass on him for them. Tough part is they just signed Bradbury and Slay to an extension. That's the tricky part here. But I just, they value corners and they see the talent here. And, Slay maybe not going to be around forever. So just too good to pass. So it'll be interesting to see, what they do with the trio. Obviously, maybe try to play all 3 of them. But yeah, I've heard a few different names. I didn't hear Skoronski, but I think if Skoronski's there, maybe that would be like a wild card because it's not really mocked a whole lot. But I even heard, which is I'm considering a wild card, I heard Darnell Wright's name pop up. Would they start him at guard right now? Maybe a future tackle. A couple pass rushers. I don't think they take Bijan Robinson, but they could. Yeah, they can go multiple different routes. They can trade back, but Gonzalez is just too talented here. Then the Titans are tricky too. I've actually heard people talking about them trading up to get a quarterback. I've actually heard that they've already called to trade back, to move back when they get more picks. So they're tricky to figure out because I have a realistic scenario where Anthony Richardson, or could it be C.J. Stroud, still available at 11. Yeah, I still think they're looking for the quarterback of the future. Tough to pass. So they're tough to figure out, though, because I actually could see a scenario where they pass. Like, one of those quarterbacks is there, and it's like they take, Jackson Smith-Njigba. They take one of the linemen. If Christian Gonzalez gets by the Eagles to 11, I think the Titans definitely would take him. That's kind of like a healthy Caleb Farley as a prospect, so I think they would like him a lot. Farley was extremely talented. The issue is just the health, the durability. But Anthony Richardson's tough to mock right now. He could go forward. He could go around here. He could, I can see the scenario where the Titans, surprisingly to some, pass and go a different route, and then Richardson continues to fall, or whoever the quarterback is here. Hard to imagine C.J. Stroud keeps falling past this point, but we had him, the Texans, there, which, the 2 AFC South teams could be battling for Stroud. It's a possibility as well. We have the Texans trading up. So I had the Bears move back a few spots and go with Broderick Jones, who I kind of been mocking to them very recently. Sounds like they like Paris Johnson Jr. best, though, but, a scheme fit. Broderick Jones, I think, can be a scheme fit. He didn't play in the outside zone with Georgia, but you watch his tape, that's where it seems like he has upside, because the tape really wasn't great, but you see the flashes of upside using his his quickness, getting out in space, and he's a boomer bust guy, but with a ton of upside, limited snaps compared to the rest. So again, that says upside. And the Bears are still kind of an upside team. They're looking good for the future. They're not trying to turn things around today, like right this second. So they could afford to work, take the time, work with Broderick Jones there. So I think that makes sense as a fit. Maybe a little bold because he didn't play in that scheme in college, but he didn't really look good in the gap/inside zone schemes that they ran there in college. The tape really wasn't that good, but you see the flashes, you see the upside in bits and pieces. So it is a risky pick, but I like the fit, and I like the upside there. So you see that trade, and they add, basically they swap 3 spots, and they swap. I look at it as a 148-203 swap in favor of the Texans, but the Bears get 73. Which is a big addition there for only moving back from 9 to 12 and still possibly getting one of their guys. 13, yeah, a little bit of a surprise here. So actually today the Packers traded with the Jets and with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers traded, and they moved up to 13 from 15 to 3. That was actually pretty big. So it might be a little of a surprise here that I am going with Michael Mayer, and I could see a number of routes here, but it might be a surprise even when they were at 15 to go Michael Mayer. Because he's starting to slide a little bit in media mock drafts, but I'm starting to think he's going to go earlier. I think teams are going to be split. I think the teams that love Michael Mayer really love him. They have him as one of their best offensive players in the draft, and there's other teams that probably think of him as an early second-round guy possibly. So, but what I heard today, it was Albert Breer. Yeah, he heard that they really like Michael Mayer over there. They're intrigued by the tight ends, Mayer and Kincaid. They really like Mayer because he's very complete, very balanced, and it's kind of what they've been looking for. Tonyan wasn't really balanced. He was kind of sneaky in the passing game, wasn't reliable blocking. Everyone wanted to make a move for like this tight end, that tight end, but they didn't trust him blocking. So they didn't make that move. So this is a guy that's kind of more of the complete package here. So kind of following the buzz of that one, that would be a little bit of a bold pick here. They could, I've heard, since they traded up, I suppose it was, they traded Rodgers, but then moved up. People have been saying Jackson Smith-Njigba, which I've mocked to them before. So I can see it. I see a lot of people saying they hopped the Patriots because they were worried the Patriots were going to take JSN. I don't think that's the case because Jackson Smith-Njigba was going to be a slot receiver in the NFL. Juju, who they signed, the Patriots, that's a slot receiver as well. I think they're looking for an outside receiver. So I don't know if they're much of a threat. And they, believe it or not, they could be a threat taking Michael Mayer because Hunter Henry's on an expiring deal. They added Gesicki, but he's more of that move tight end, the receiver tight end there. And the Patriots aren't afraid to add a big-time tight end. So I'm kind of following that buzz, and it's just sounding like they really like him. I like that he's kind of like complete package there. So, watch out for the surprise, like somewhat of a surprise. If 3 months ago, this wasn't a surprise, So in the media mocking Mayer lower and lower, I think made it into a surprise. So watch out for that. It is very interesting now that the Packers have the 13th pick and the Jets have the 14th pick, and we kind of can see why here, because the Patriots now get Darnell Wright, which is, I love the fit there. It's like an A+ scenario. I'd love Brian Branch for them too. Not mocked enough up here. But Wright, Tennessee's right tackle, plug-and-play starter, bully of a blocker, familiar with, gap blocking, Patriots, trying to go back towards that. It's a great fit, good value. If he's there, that's got to be the pick at 14. And the worry was if the Jets were ahead of him, they take that last top tackle, and the Patriots don't get him. But now the Patriots are one spot ahead of the Jets. The Jets are at 15 because of that Aaron Rodgers trade. So that's tough. And I actually have the Jets going with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who could actually land with the Packers. It's a possibility, like we said. Or I think tackle could surprisingly be an option for the Packers as well at 13. They hopped the Patriots. Maybe they, looking to get a tackle for the future. But Jackson Smith-Njigba to the Jets, a little bit of a wild card here, but they were very much in on OBJ. They did not get him, so they're looking to load up on receivers. And they got McCole Hardman, who's kind of a gadget guy, can do a little bit of everything and play in the slot, but only a 1-year deal. So they get a true slot receiver that can do more work downfield and get Smith-Njigba for Aaron Rodgers, and it just feels like Aaron Rodgers is running the show. He's telling them who to go after, and we heard Aaron Rodgers speak a couple years ago that he watched draft film on receivers and gave his input to the Packers, and they didn't really listen. Something tells me that the Jets are already listening. I was going to say, something tells me the Jets would listen. I think they already are listening. So he could request one of these big-time receivers in Smith-Njigba or Jordan Addison. I think they could be interested in Addison as well. But I think getting Wilson from Ohio State last year could tie them to Smith-Njigba here. So very interesting. They move back a couple spots and get that receiver. 16th pick, Commanders take Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback from Penn State. Yeah, I was starting to think that, mocking it to the Commanders, maybe do something a little surprising because that's what they do the last couple years. But now I'm hearing them tied to Joey Porter Jr., which really isn't too surprising there. I think it's a scheme fit, and this should be his range in the draft. I talked about it recently in the cornerback rankings. He actually struggled on tape a little more than I thought when it came to like in-breaking routes and being grabby on those. Keep him kind of on the boundary. The Commanders will run a bit of cover 4, so that would make sense there for Porter Jr. and the Commanders. So this was a pick. I saw, the rumors I saw on this made it sound like, like if he's there, that's the guy. That's the guy there. So, I like Porter Jr. to the Commanders at the moment. Steelers, I thought about moving up. With that, I just keep hearing it. Like every week, I hear that they want to trade up. So I thought about it. Does a team want to move that far back though? Do they want to move that far up? I think they would really like Paris Johnson Jr. He was off the board at 3. So I think he would have to start falling possibly. I mean, they could go up for Broderick Jones. Is it worth going up for like a boomer bust guy? Probably not going to be great right away. Steelers are trying to win right now. You don't know about win a Super Bowl, but they're trying to do some damage right now. So it didn't really make sense in this scenario to trade up. I wouldn't really agree with it. But I went with Deonte Banks, who I know they like. I heard they actually, if they're deciding between the corners and both are on the board between Porter Jr. and Deonte Banks, believe it or not, everyone think Joey Porter Jr., but they're actually kind of split on it. Banks with his man coverage ability, his man coverage is better than Joey Porter. Joey Porter has some really good press, so does Banks, but man coverage, following guys around, especially across the field, Banks is better, but Porter might be a little better in zone. The Steelers grab Banks here, Porter off the board. Pick 18, I have a trade. Heard the Giants could make a splash move on draft day. I heard that they also have, everybody knows they've done their homework big time on receivers. They've actually had, the staff actually went out to dinner with both Jackson Smith-Njigba and Jordan Addison. So I have them moving up. I also heard the Lions already have made calls to trade back from 18, which is interesting. But they've already made those calls. I've heard they can do multiple different scenarios with trading back, even trading up, or with different picks, different types of picks at 18. But I did hear that they actually already called and tried to try to trade back, and it could happen. It's probably something that just wouldn't happen now anyways. You have to wait and see. So that made sense for both sides actually to do this deal. The Giants hop over teams that could get Addison, Seahawks, Chargers, Ravens, Vikings, teams like that. It just seems like they're definitely in on the receiver. In terms of fit, I could be wrong on this, more of an opinion, but I could if Addison and Jackson Smith-Njigba were both available, it's around 50-50, but maybe I'll go 51-49. I think they would choose Addison. My opinion, could be wrong on that because it's very toss-up. I think with a lot of people, those guys are very close. But they go up and get Addison, get their receiver that can play. And why I say that is because he can play inside and outside. He played more outside last year at USC. Go back to watch the Pitt tape. He played more on the inside, but did both. 2 different roles, 2 different systems, and really good. So that's why Addison is a very safe pick. So the Giants get 18 and a later pick, 194. Lions get 25, and they add 89 and 128. So do the Lions really need more picks? I don't know, but they like the value of adding more picks here, just moving on from 18. So both teams kind of get what they want right there. 19, the Bucs go Brian Branch, who I'm a huge fan of. He should go a lot earlier in this. I thought about the Patriots, but with Darnell Wright still there, you got to go him. I think they go him. But Branch is a good fit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Need a slot guy. That's what he is. He also can play safety, and they like those versatile guys. But this guy can dominate the slot in man or zone. We've seen the Bucs recently run a lot of cover 3, which is zone. But in past years, including the Super Bowl year, a lot of man coverage. So you can be able to mix those up there with a guy like Brian Branch. Really good fit. Really good ball player, like underrated somehow. This would be an A-plus pick. This would be an A-plus pick from me if it happens, and I had it happening in this scenario. We got Nolan Smith, who could go as early as 8 to the Falcons. Sure, yeah, I wouldn't really agree with it, but he could go up there. And he could go somewhere down here. I mean, it's a little bit risky of a pick coming off the injury, and he's undersized. Will there be more of those injuries? And he kind of plays undersized in terms of the pass rushing, can get off balance, kind of relies on the speed and the get off, but plays bigger than his size in the run game, and he can drop in coverage. The Seahawks grabbed Georgia D tackle, Jalen Carter. Now they grab Georgia pass rusher that can do multiple things here with the 20th pick. So they add big needs, and they add a couple of teammates there from the Georgia Bulldogs. So that made sense to me there as well. Really thought about, I got like Osiris Torrance, a possibility here. A couple different options, but felt good with Nolan Smith here. 21, I got the Chargers taking Dalton Kincaid, who's been hot name. Honestly, he's been a bigger name than Michael Mayer, but I have Michael Mayer going early. I think actually more teams might like Kincaid, but I think the teams that really like Mayer will really like Mayer. That have him towards the top of the offensive board in the draft. But Kincaid, I've been hearing him linked to the Chargers. Heard that this morning as well. A weapon in there for that Herbert offense. And then could elevate everybody's play there. Just kind of a mismatch guy from the slot. So that can help him in multiple situations. I mean, it can help. Keenan Allen moves around from the slot and the outside. It can open things up for him and Mike Williams. It creates a mismatch. He's kind of a downfield guy, like a route running, part of a high-powered offense, which that offense led by Justin Herbert is. And then again, he's kind of like a big slot receiver, and Keenan Allen could be gone after next year. So Kincaid can kind of be that slot receiver in a way. That is a tight end, and then you have Mike Williams, the big body outside guy. So you kind of just need, a Z receiver then, I suppose, instead of grabbing another slot, so it kind of makes sense for multiple reasons. And I've heard his name linked to the Chargers earlier today. 22, maybe a little bold because you don't see this often. The Ravens going Bijan Robinson. Really thought about Zay Flowers. Actually, this morning I heard them linked to Zay Flowers. They like him. He's been getting a lot of buzz too. But I just keep going, and I heard that they could still look at other teams. I actually believe it. I think what was the report. Other teams, think they'll still be after. They're expecting them to be after another receiver, even though they signed OBJ. They could see them liking Zay Flowers. Yeah, that's what you'd think. They probably still need a receiver, but the Ravens, I don't know if they think like that, and I definitely could be wrong with this, but I think what they want to go into the season using OBJ, using who they signed to big money. They signed to big money, so they obviously want to use him a lot. They still like Rashad Bateman. I mean, they drafted him very high, a first-round pick a few years ago. I shouldn't say very high, but if any first-round pick's very high. A few years ago, they signed Nelson Aguilar for a reason. They want to use him, and they like them some Devin Duvernay. That's 4 receivers. Are the Ravens really going to use? Are they really? I mean, they could find a way to get better. I definitely respect that. They should find a way to get better there because the position's been a letdown. But my thinking is, I think they might like those 4 guys in there. And I know OBJ's only a 1-year deal. That'd be a reason they can do it. But they value running backs, and they're top dogs right now. They've been injured. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, they've been injured, and they're upcoming free agents. Dobbins, their main guy, is an upcoming free agent this next offseason. And they've been at times they've been a little hesitant with him, and they want to make sure he's 100%. They value running backs. You got a big time playmaker here, not only in the run game and the passing game as well. I think maybe just too good to pass on for them right here. So I have Bijan at 22. But like I said, it could be Zay Flowers, but I have Zay Flowers of the Vikings, which Vikings been getting a lot of buzz about moving up. I don't know if that's legit sources really. Legit sources that I saw, what they said was that they've done homework on quarterbacks. It's a possibility. And then me adding something into it, I think if a big time one starts to slide a little more, then they can trade up. They're not going to trade up all the way, and maybe I'm wrong, but all the way in the top 10. And they could take Hendon Hooker here. That's been a lot of buzz about that. Right here. But I was thinking of Flowers. Flowers been getting a lot of buzz lately. It sounds like, people are confident he can go earlier in this even, so maybe he doesn't get by this point here. Maybe it's the very latest. They are looking for another receiver. It's a guy that can play inside and outside, which Thielen was doing, so I think they'll like that about Flowers, so that made sense. 24, Myles Murphy was still on the board, so in this scenario, which is ridiculous because I'm a big Myles Murphy fan. He's very, very talented. He has a lot of upside. Maybe a little underrated, even though I think everyone thinks he's pretty good. But in this scenario that I had, he was still on the board. So that's kind of showing that maybe this draft class is a little underrated. You got some really good players, available down here. Myles Murphy feels like a 4-3 end, so maybe the Jags will question the fit. I think they're good with mixing it up though, and they kind of got the versatile guys that different looks. So I think there should be Murphy with his length and his power. I think it'd be too good to pass on. Pair him with Trayvon Walker for the future. They do have Josh Allen. They could use all three. Josh Allen's an upcoming free agent. They could get him back. We'll see. But Murphy still available at 24. That'd be an A+ pick for me. But apparently it's possible. 25, we had that trade with the Giants and the Lions. It made sense because the Giants, I heard they're looking to make a splash move perhaps, and they're very interested in specifically the top 2 receivers. And I heard the Lions already made calls to trade back. They're not trying to trade back immediately, but teams start to make those calls right now. So they move around a bit. The Lions gain some extra picks. They like making picks. And they grab O'Cyrus Torrence, who's been linked to them a little bit here. Bijan's been linked to them very recently. This morning I saw talk on that. They could stay put at 18 and take him. Could they trade back and still get him if he's available? It's a possibility. But O'Cyrus Torrence, plug-and-play starting guard. I seen a quote from an NFL offensive line coach said that it's a reach taking Torrence in the first. But mainly he's been mocked in the first. But I guess I can see it why somebody would say that, because today's offensive linemen are so athletic, they're so quick, and he's kind of missing that quickness. So to take a guard, not maybe the most valuable, even though it's maybe more valuable than you think, but not the most valuable position. Do you take one that maybe isn't a complete one in the first round? But he's been linked to the Lions to be a plug-and-play starter. They trade back, gain picks, and still get him. 26. Cowboys. I mocked this last time. Steve Avila. I've actually heard watch out for Joe Tippmann for the Cowboys, which I mentioned he could be a sneaky first-round pick, but Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. He was a center, but you watch him play, and he looks like a guard. He's built a little bit more like a guard, too. So upside there, his ability to get downfield. So I guess watch out for Tippmann for the Cowboys, who can play guard or center if you need him to. But I like Avila. I think more of their style, like the power anchor type blocker, can fit right in at left guard if their plan is to play Tyler Davis at left tackle, I should say, even though he's a guard and tackle apparently, because he was a tackle in college. They bring him in to start him at guard, but he has to go out to left tackle. He played very well there, so I would like to keep him out there because he played so well there. But Avila, you plug him in at left guard, but has reps at center and right tackle. I think they'll love that in case somebody goes down, because that's been an issue, for the Cowboys in the past. And Tyler Smith, that is. I just realized I said Tyler Davis. I knew that wasn't right when it came out. But, it was way better than I expected last year, and he can play guard or tackle. But Steve Avila, again, the versatility there. I think they kind of remind them of last year and how that helped them so much. 27, the Bills with Quentin Johnston, the TCU receiver, which everyone's going to be split on him. There's some teams that are going to have maybe a top 3 receiver, and some teams that have a second-round grade on him. It is a boomer bust guy, but the report I saw earlier today, the buzz that I saw was that the Bills actually could be looking for the Gabe Davis replacement, because they feel like they might not be able to afford him long-term. He might ask for more than maybe what he's really worth. So get that big body receiver here that can do a bit of everything. The question with him is, can he catch the ball a little bit better? Some drops. Can he do more than just stay on one side of the field and run 2 or 3 routes? Can he high point the ball better? But, what you like about him, he's a big body guy. He's physical, and he's got freaky athleticism for a bigger body guy. So could see the Bills taking him. Could see the Vikings taking him as well. But the Bills at 27 is what we're hearing at the moment. 28, the Lucas Van Ness is still available. So some of the pass rushers end up falling a little bit. Van Ness, some people are really high on. I think teams would be split on him as well. It's a risky pick, though. You watch the tape, and is there a little bit too much hype? You think maybe, I think maybe the middle to late first round is more of his range, actually. And the Bengals would like him, pairing him with Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. Maybe too good to pass at this point. So the Bengals go with Van Ness at 28. So you see some of these pass rushers, Murphy, Van Ness, start to slide in this scenario. So it is a possibility. It started with Will Anderson, really. So it's kind of a chain reaction there. 29, heard the Saints could look to trade up. couldn't really find a spot. You know, the Lions are looking to trade back. It's pretty far movement for the both of them. So I heard they could look to trade up, though. It really isn't a surprise. But, KEION White makes sense. I think we had this last time. They like big body, long pass rushers, and KEION White is that. He's got upside. He's 24, but he's got upside still with more reps at the position. He also can drop in coverage. He also can play on the inside, so that's the positive with him. The idea of him is kind of growing on me. The tape really isn't like that great. I was kind of thinking at one point, like if somebody takes him in the first round, I'm just going to hate it, but not really at that spot anymore. I think, you know, it's kind of growing. The idea of him's growing on me, but sometimes that's a mistake. You know, sometimes because the tape really isn't that great, and he's 24 and he's still learning the position, so it is a little risky of a pick there. 30, Will McDonald, who I like a lot. He should go earlier in this probably, and the Eagles like him, and he's kind of got some versatility. He can stand up, put his hand in the dirt, even over or inside the tackle. He can rush. He can even drop in coverage. So I think they'll like him there at 30. The Saints could go him as well. I thought about that. He has the length they're looking for. Maybe not like the build, like the size, weight, I guess. I'm trying to say. But I could see the Eagles going him at 30. And then the Chiefs, who I heard would like to trade up, and I played around with that before, around the Vikings spot, the Vikings, Ravens, around that range. Watch out for that. In this scenario, I had him staying put. If they trade up, look out for Zay Flowers. That almost seems like smoke to me. I could be wrong, but it just seems like another Sky Moore, somewhat of another Sky Moore. And then, the big report is that he worked out with Patrick Mahomes. To me, it's like, all right, let's have this guy work out with you, Patrick. Let's see how much we like him. And we do like him, but let's really throw some teams off here. That's kind of how I took it, but they could really like Zay Flowers. But I heard if they stay put, Jahmyr Gibbs could be a wild card one. I heard that name. I think it's more of a wild card. Mazi Smith and Jalen Hyatt are the names if they stay put at 31. Hyatt would fit well. I would like it a lot with his speed. But I think there's a couple of speedy receivers they can get in the second. And I wouldn't really love the Mazi Smith pick. I actually like Keanu Benton a little more, even though they're different. They're a little different. But, they're, Derek Nottie on a 1-year cheap deal. So he's going to be a free agent. Could be that replacement there. And they lost Kalen Saunders. They don't really have much depth in that spot, on top of, Nottie starting there, which he's solid. He's been big for them here and there. But, a spot you can get better, and you don't have the depth, and he's on a 1-year deal. You had Mazi Smith, who can play nose or D tackle. I know they have Chris Jones out there, which we don't have to worry about that spot. But so I could see the fit. He's been linked there in some rumors that I trust. It is a little early just because, he has upside and he's good. He'll stop the run. For me to take like a nose tackle he could play some D tackle, but for me to take, a nose tackle guy, like he has to be able to move around a bit, which I guess he's got that. But he has to be, he has to make big time plays for me, like to, take him into first. And his backfield production is a little lacking. He's kind of just wait for the runner to come to me, and he'll stonewall him. He'll stop him. But I wish there was a little bit more for me to like him in the first. We are at the last pick in the first round, so it isn't like the end of the world or anything like that. And I'm not going to hate the pick, but I'm not really going to. I don't know if I really love it, but again, we're basically in the second round here. So that is my updated mock, some of it based on what we're hearing lately, some of it just based on what makes sense to me, some of it kind of based on gut, fit, things like that. We'll have another video, a mock video, I'm sure. Before the draft, finish up my position rankings. Got to do big board, my guys, maybe a couple other videos, so a lot to do. Any last second updates and predictions is on Twitter. They're on Twitter, so make sure you follow that Twitter link pinned in the comments. We'll have live analysis for every pick, day 2 and 3 on Twitter, like always. We'll be live on day 1 right here on YouTube. So like, subscribe to notifications on me. Much appreciated. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.